Don't you guys think GTA 5 Final Act was kinda miss? Let me explain. Let's start by rewinding to the opening hours of GTA 5. Remember how carefully Rockstar introduced us to Los Santos and its colorful cast of characters? The game took its sweet time, letting us get to know Michael, Franklin, and Trevor as individuals before bringing them together. We got to explore the city, understand the characters' motivations, and really sink our teeth into the world Rockstar had created. Those initial hours were a masterclass in world building and character development. We saw Michael's dysfunctional family life, Franklin's struggles in the hood, and got that jaw-dropping introduction to Trevor. The pacing was deliberate, allowing us to form connections with these characters and the world they inhabited. It wasn't just about the action. It was about creating a living, breathing Los Santos that felt real and alive. Now, fast forward to the ending. After spending dozens of hours with these characters, pulling off insane heists, and navigating the complexities of their relationships, we're suddenly faced with a rather abrupt conclusion. The final mission, the third way, while action-packed, feels like it's rushing to tie up loose ends rather than providing a satisfying resolution to the intricate plot we've been following. One of the main issues with the ending is how it handles the antagonists. Throughout the game, we're introduced to various threats: the FIB, Merryweather, rival gangs, and more. These entities are built up as formidable opponents, each with their own agendas and power structures. But in the final mission, we're tasked with eliminating them all in what essentially boils down to a series of quick shootouts. It feels like a checklist being hastily completed, rather than a nuanced resolution to complex conflicts. Let's compare this to how these threats were introduced. Remember the tension of working with the FIB, never quite sure if they'd turn on you? Or the looming presence of Merryweather as a private military force? These elements were woven into the fabric of the game's world and narrative over many hours. To see them dispatched so quickly in the end feels like a disservice to the careful setup. Another aspect that feels rushed is the resolution of the main character's personal arcs. Throughout the game, we see Michael grappling with his past and trying to reconnect with his family. Franklin is torn between loyalty to his old friends and his ambitions for a better life. Trevor is dealing with being Trevor. These personal journeys are what make the characters so compelling, but their conclusions feel somewhat hastily wrapped up in the final moments of the game. The ending also lacks the emotional weight that the rest of the game so successfully cultivated. Think about some of the standout moments earlier in the story: the tension of the jewelry store heist, the shock of Trevor's introduction, or the complex emotions surrounding Michael's family therapy sessions. These moments had time to breathe, to resonate with the player. In contrast, the ending feels like it's sprinting towards a finish line, not giving us time to process the culmination of our characters' journeys. In my opinion, multiple ending choices, while interesting in theory, contribute to this feeling of being rushed. Instead of crafting one truly satisfying conclusion, the game splits its focus between three possible outcomes. This division of narrative resources means that none of the endings feel as fully realized as they could have been if the game had committed to a single, more developed conclusion. Now, I'm not saying the ending is all bad. The idea of bringing all three protagonists together for a final mission is cool, and there are certainly some exciting moments. But when you compare it to the careful pacing and attention to detail that characterize the rest of the game, it's hard not to feel like something's missing. It's almost as if Rockstar, after creating this vast, intricate world and narrative, suddenly realized they needed to wrap things up and did so in a hurry. The contrast between the slow burn of the game's opening hours and the frantic pace of its conclusion is jarring. It's like listening to a beautiful symphony that suddenly speeds up in the final movement, leaving you feeling a bit disoriented. The problem was massive. First up, let's talk about my man Lamar. Remember how Stretch kidnapped him? That whole plotline was building up to be something big, right? We've got Franklin's best friend in danger. We've got this betrayal from Stretch, and it's all set up for some serious drama. But then, nothing. It's like Rockstar suddenly remembered they had this plotline hanging and were like, oh crap, what do we do with this? So they just kinda resolved it off screen? I mean, come on. We spent all this time getting to know Lamar, laughing at his roasts, watching his friendship with Franklin evolve. And then when things get real, we don't even get to see how it plays out? That's like ordering a pizza and only getting the crust? It's not cool, Rockstar. Not cool at all. And don't even get me started on Merryweather. These guys were built up to be this big, bad private military company. They were everywhere, causing trouble, being all mysterious and stuff. We had missions against them, Trevor had a whole beef with them, and it seemed like they were going to be a major player in the endgame. But nope. They just kind of fizzle out. It's like Rockstar created this awesome villain and then forgot what to do with them. They're just there in the background being vaguely menacing but never really paying off in a satisfying way. It's like if in a superhero movie, they introduced this badass supervillain, and then in the final battle, they're just standing in the corner, looking confused. And you know what? This mess of unresolved plotlines and half-baked story arcs? It's all over the place in the final act. It's like Rockstar had all these cool ideas, started a bunch of different stories, and then realized, oh shoot, we need to wrap this up. So they just started throwing everything into a blender and hoped it would come out smooth. But here's the thing. It didn't come out smooth. It came out chunky, with bits of story flying all over the place. Let's take a moment to talk about Michael's family drama. Throughout the game, we see him struggling with his relationship with his wife and kids. It's this whole big thing, right? We've got therapy sessions, awkward family dinners, the whole 9 yards. And it seems like it's building to something big. Maybe Michael will have to choose between his family and his life of crime? Maybe there'll be some big emotional confrontation? But nah. By the end, it's just kind of there. His family is just hanging around, occasionally making snarky comments. All that build-up, all that tension, and it just kind of fizzles out. It's like watching a pot of water almost boil, and then someone just turns off the stove. Anticlimactic much? And let's not forget about Franklin's whole character arc. Here's this young guy from the hood, trying to make it big, caught between his old life and new ambitions. It's a classic story, ripe with potential for some real character development. But in the end, what do we get? Franklin just kind of goes along with whatever Michael and Trevor are doing. His personal story gets lost in the shuffle of all the other chaos going on. It's like Rockstar had this great idea for Franklin's character growth, but then they got distracted by all the explosions and heists and just forgot about it. Poor Franklin. Dude deserved better. Oh. And can we talk about Trevor for a second? Trevor is amazing. He's chaos personified, and that's what makes him fun. But even his storyline gets messy towards the end. We've got this whole thing with his past, his relationship with Michael, his beef with the lost MC, his issues with his mother. And how does it all come together? It doesn't really. It's just Trevor being Trevor, which is fun, but it feels like a missed opportunity for some real character depth. It's like Rockstar created this complex, messed up character, and then at the end they were like, hey, just let him do some crazy stuff. That'll be enough. And yeah, it's entertaining, but it could have been so much more. Now, I'm not saying the game isn't fun. It's a blast to play, and Los Santos is an amazing world to explore. But man, when you start looking at the story, especially towards the end, it's like trying to solve a jigsaw puzzle where half the pieces are missing and the other half are from different puzzles. It feels like Rockstar had all these great ideas, all these intersecting storylines, and they just couldn't figure out how to bring them all together in a satisfying way. So instead, they just threw everything at the wall and hoped something would stick. And sure, some of it stuck, but a lot of it just slid right off, leaving us with this messy, confusing final act. You know what it reminds me of? It's like when you're writing an essay for school, and you've got all these great points you want to make, but you're running out of time. So you just start cramming everything in at the end, hoping the teacher won't notice that you didn't really connect all your ideas. Except in this case, we're the teachers, and we definitely noticed. And here's the thing that really gets me. GTA 5 didn't need to do this. The game is already massive, with tons of content. Would it have killed them to take a little more time to properly wrap up these storylines? To give us some real closure on all these plot threads they dangled in front of us? Imagine if we got to see how the whole Lamar kidnapping situation played out. Or if we had a proper final confrontation with Merryweather that actually felt climactic. Or if Michael's family drama had a real resolution instead of just kind of existing. These aren't just nitpicks, you know? These are major parts of the story that just got left hanging. It's like Rockstar built this amazing roller coaster, Got us all excited for the big drop, and then the ride just ends. No drop, no loop-de-loop, just a slow stop and a thanks for riding sign. Now, I don't want to sound like I'm just hating on the game. Like I said before, GTA 5 is still an incredible experience. The world building is top-notch, the characters are memorable, and the gameplay is a blast. But man, when you've got such a great foundation, it makes these storytelling missteps stand out even more. It's like ordering a gourmet burger, and it looks amazing, tastes great, but then you realize they forgot to put the patty in. You're still gonna enjoy the rest of it, but you can't help feeling like something important is missing. And you know what? I think this whole mess in the final act actually says something interesting about open-world games in general. These games are getting bigger and bigger, with more complex stories and interconnected plot lines, and that's awesome. But it also means there's more room for things to fall apart if they're not managed carefully. It's like Rockstar bit off more than they could chew. They created this huge, complex world with all these storylines, but when it came time to bring it all together, they just couldn't quite stick the landing. But hey, maybe that's the price we pay for these massive, ambitious games. Maybe it's better to have a messy, overstuffed story than a small, tidy one that doesn't take any risks. I don't know. What do you guys think? And you know what? Despite all these issues, despite the messy final act and the abandoned plot lines, we're still here talking about GTA 5 years after its release. That's gotta count for something, right? They needed more time, simply. Anyways, I'm ending this video or rant, but you gotta let me know in the comments that do you think GTA 5 was rushed towards the end, or you think everything was smooth and perfect? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.